spoiler warning, because I want to get into that very juicy Mandalorian Season 2 spoiler. You know the one I'm talking about. What's up, everybody? It's Josh. Welcome back to the channel. Smash that like button. Let's get right into this video. Now, yesterday, I did a video all about Boba Fett in The Mandalorian Season 2. This was before I saw the first episode for The Mandalorian Season 2, and I said, this just adds up, man. Boba's totally going to be in this thing, and I think he might even be in the first episode. But I also kind of think Moff Gideon will be focused on the first episode, but we've got like a 52-minute episode, so I don't know. Maybe they'll tease a little bit of Boba right away. Maybe we'll get him in episode 2 or something like that. Okay, so yeah, we totally knew that Boba Fett was going to be in the show. There's a lot of information that we know about Boba Fett in the show, and I thought it was a possibility that he would be in the first episode. And he totally was, but I'll be completely honest with you guys, it did surprise me, and as I mentioned in the video yesterday, I was really thinking they would do more Moff Gideon stuff in the first episode, set that up and do Boba later on, but they went right for that Boba real hard. And strangely enough, I recommend watching the video I did yesterday before even seeing The Mandalorian for a good breakdown of like who Cobb Vanth is, how that's all going to work out, and what the future of the Boba Fett character will be. But in this video, there's a couple of things that I wanted to talk about, and mostly I want to discuss Boba Fett actually now being 100% confirmed for the show, Cobb Vanth, the armor, everything, what all of this means. And so just like we predicted, Boba Fett's armor was found in the hands of Cobb Vanth at the beginning of this series. Cobb Vanth buys it off Jawas just like he did in the Aftermath novels, and in the Aftermath novels, the Jawas find the armor just laying in the sand in the middle of the desert, and I believe they indicate that it is damaged. And so one of two things happened after Boba got out of the Sarlacc pit, because he obviously got out of it. Either his armor was corroding off of his body and he was really injured, and so he just had to take the armor off, or maybe it just fell off of him as he was crawling towards life and trying to survive. Or maybe Boba abandoned his armor. I mean, we still know very little about the actual motivations for this character, what was going on in his mind after Return of the Jedi, after Luke defeats Jabba the Hutt and all of that sort of stuff. We don't know what was going on with that character. But either way, his armor is abandoned. Now, the character of Gor Koresh, who strangely enough was actually voiced by John Leguizamo, which I think is just fan-freaking-tastic, but this character has some information about a Mandalorian being on Tatooine, and he gives this information up to Djarin at the beginning of the episode. And so the big question is, was Gor Koresh speaking of Cobb Vanth, or was he speaking of Boba Fett? Both could be possible. You see, in the Aftermath book, I remember Cobb Vanth literally fighting off mercenaries that were hired by someone that was trying to get the Mandalorian armor, particularly the chest piece. They really wanted Boba Fett's armor. And Gor Koresh talks about his love of Beskar and how he's done a lot of work gathering Beskar, killing Mandalorians to get Beskar armor. And so it's possible he is talking about Cobb Vanth, and he thinks Cobb Vanth is a Mandalorian because he has heard about the armor and he keeps trying to get it. It's also possible Gor Koresh knows nothing of Cobb Vanth and is actually referring to an actual Mandalorian, Boba Fett, on Tatooine. Either way, we see the Boba Fett character at the end of the episode. Tamara Morrison is looking out at the Mandalorian as he is riding away from Cobb Vanth with Boba's armor. And we see Boba wearing the weapons of a sand person, and he even looks like he's wearing some of the clothing of a sand person. It is completely possible that he was hiding as a sand person, perhaps even in certain scenes within this episode, but at the end of the show, he does look to be separate from the other sand people. And so this begs the question, like, what was Boba doing from the time he left the Sarlacc pit to the time we see him at the end of this episode, and why would he allow Cobb Vanth to just parade around in his armor? Before I speculate too much about that, I want to talk about episode 5 from The Mandalorian Season 1 and Fennec Shand. Let's start with Fennec Shand. Earlier this year, the Hashtag Show said that they had heard that Ming-Na Wen would be returning for The Mandalorian Season 2, and she would be reprising the role of Fennec Shand. The last time we see Fennec Shand, she is on the ground at the end of episode 5, and it is in the end of episode 5 that many fans thought we got our first look at live-action Boba Fett in The Mandalorian. This was due to an iconic sound playing as the boots and spurs came into frame, really looking a lot like Boba. And I was talking to Al Schuler about this earlier this morning when we were breaking it down, and he made this great point that if it actually was Cobb Vanth that got Fennec Shand and she's alive, we would have seen Fennec Shand in that town. He would have had her, right? He would have had her in prison or something to that effect. And so the fact that we don't see her there makes me think she's likely with the real Boba Fett, and that opens up some really interesting possibilities. And so if Gor Koresh was talking about Boba Fett, and he knew that Boba Fett was on Tatooine, and Fennec Shand was on Tatooine running from the guild, running from all of these different powerful people, but somehow with Boba Fett, maybe it stands to reason that those two were working together in some capacity, and that there could be some kind of an organization that's anti-Imperial Remnant, perhaps even anti-New Republic, and is just trying to find their way in the new budding and changing galaxy. Now, remember what I was saying before, where there's only really two options as far as how the Jawas got the armor? I mean, number one, Boba just has to leave the armor because he's like in survival mode. He doesn't even realize it, and he more like lost it, right? Or he abandoned the armor. And what's interesting to me is the fact that he is willing to watch Cobb Vanth wear the armor makes me believe that he actually abandoned the armor. And maybe there was something else going on with a connection to the Empire, the Imperial Remnant, or something that Boba knows about that made him want to sort of disappear, to get off the grid. And so it's possible Boba has been laying low, pretending to be a sand person, or just kind of hiding out in the deserts of Tatooine. But if Fennec Shand also went to Tatooine to hide and then is sort of rescued at the end of episode 5 by Boba Fett, that implies that she too is trying to disappear in the same way that Boba is. And maybe they are both aware of some other exterior threat. And to take this speculation even further, I mean, I just have to say it, I really think that Jon Favreau has big plans for Boba Fett. And again, this is in some of the other videos that we've been talking about, but it is rumored that there will be a live-action Boba Fett series spinning out of this show. It is rumored that Boba will play a huge role in season 3 of The Mandalorian, and Jon Favreau just loves this character. I mean, this is the first episode of The Mandalorian that Jon Favreau directed, and we get to see a mythology about Boba Fett actually taking place in this episode, and I thought it was brilliant. And so just to put a bow on it, to wrap it up completely, what I think is happening is there was a reason that Boba abandoned his armor. There was a reason that he was willing to just sit back, disappear, and watch Cobb Vanth try to put Tatooine back together. And I think that that same reason will come back into play and actually make Boba put the armor back on and potentially help the Mandalorian out, which would lead me to believe that this has to do with the Imperial Remnant, and this has to do with Moff Gideon. Could we see Boba, even though he's not technically a Mandalorian, could we see him have a lot of love for Mandalore and hate what happened during the Great Purge and hate Moff Gideon for having possession of the Darksaber? I think it's possible, and I think that would be very, very cool. But that's it, folks. A breakdown and an explanation of the juiciest and biggest spoiler from episode 1 of season 2 of The Mandalorian. A lot of people doubted it. A lot of people said it wouldn't happen, and it did happen. Boba Fett is back. We also saw Cobb Vanth and that storyline just kind of setting it up for that armor to be back on Boba Fett. I think it's freaking fantastic. But I, of course, want to know what you think. What do you think about our explanation here, and also the speculation we had about what we think will happen with Boba moving forward? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. And now let's shout out David Nations. Yes, indeed, it takes 1,000 years to be digested in the stomach of the Sarlacc. And now let's ask another nerd card question before we get out of here. I want to know, in what famous Star Wars video game did you have to fight a dragon just like they did in this episode and retrieve that pearl? If you like this video, make sure you drop a like on it. If you're not subscribed to this channel, what are you thinking? You've got to subscribe so you don't miss any videos. If you're enjoying the content over here, then you will absolutely love the live streams we do straight from Nerdvengers Tower Monday through Friday, starting at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.